Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Freckle webinar. I'm glad you could join us. My name is Hannah. I'm on the team here at Freckle, and today we're going to talk about Freckle for grades K-2. I'm going to talk a little bit briefly about what's different about Freckle for K-2 students versus Freckle for older students. And then we're going to jump in and take a look at Freckle on the student side so you can see what your K-2 students are going to see when they practice in Freckle. Quick housekeeping item before we get started. If you have any questions as we go, you can feel free to go ahead and chat those in using the Q&A box in your GoToWebinar screen. I will let you know we have a pretty packed agenda today, so I may not be able to answer all of your questions. But if you do have any questions that I am not able to answer, do feel free to write in to support@freckle.com. And either I or one of my amazing colleagues will get back with you as quickly as possible and get all those questions answered so you can get up and running in Freckle with your K-2 students. All right, before we take a look at the product, I wanted to talk a little bit briefly about how Freckle is different for K-2 students than it is for older students. So if you're familiar with Freckle, if you've seen Freckle demonstrations before, or if you have colleagues in older grades who use Freckle, this is what's going to be different for you and your students. So K-2 students are going to have less to look at on the screen to keep them focused and to make it easy for them to understand where to go. They're not going to need to have a lot of already advanced reading skills to understand where they need to go to do their practice. There's also very little typing. So if your students are still kind of getting used to keyboards and working on their typing skills, they're not going to need to do a lot of typing to be able to use Freckle. Some of the math problems do involve entering a number on the screen, but it's not going to be a major feature of the product for them. With K-2, we're focusing on foundational skills. So students are going to have a lot more opportunities to learn reading sight words, building initial reading skills, initial math skills, just kind of working on those basics. So the curriculum really is tailored toward K-2 students within Freckle. And then lastly, there are special practice modes that are unique to K-2 students that are going to really drive home those foundations and are really built for them. And we'll take a look at those in a minute. So how is Freckle for K-2 students the same as for everybody else? First of all, it's the exact same website. So students will still log in at student.freckle.com. On the teacher side, you will still use classroom.freckle.com. The difference is all on the interface side. So you don't have to go to a special place or set up a special account for your K-2 students. It's all the same Freckle. It just looks different and offers different practice modes for your K-2 students. Just like Freckle for older students, K-2 students are still going to be practicing at their own level. So it's completely adaptive. They will progress at their own pace, and they're able to take on greater challenges as they grow. So the product is going to grow with them, but not move them forward if they're not ready yet. We have differentiated reading articles and a differentiated math pathway. So your students who are really progressing along quickly are going to be able to take on those greater challenges, and your students who need a little bit more time to get those foundations correct and become proficient with those earlier skills are going to stay there until they've mastered them, so it's not going to move them along too quickly. That means that everybody in your class is going to be practicing at their own level, even if you have some students who are much more advanced than others and some students who need a little bit more time practicing. Just like Freckle for older grades, you can create assignments if you want your students to read a particular article or you want everybody to practice a particular skill. You can do that from your teacher dashboard. And lastly, students will still earn coins as they answer questions correctly that they can spend in the Piggy store. And if you're not familiar with the Piggy store, that's the kind of reward center where as students make progress in the product and they collect these coins, they can visit the Piggy store for a very limited amount of time and spend those coins on outfits and upgrades for their avatar. So that's just kind of a fun reward for them. It's not too, gamified, and they're not going to be able to spend the whole time just kind of messing around in there. Exactly as the same as for older students, they'll be able to go into the Piggy store at certain points once they've reached a threshold, buy their little rewards, and then get back to practicing. One question that we get all the time is, can we use Freckle K-2 products with students who are above grade 2, but who might be either special education or English language learners who still need to work on those foundational skills? And the answer is yes. So if you have students who are in grades 3 or above, who are working at a K-2 level, as they read articles and work on math questions, they're going to be working at their own level. So if they are at a first grade level, regardless of what grade they're actually in or how old they are, they're going to continue seeing those first grade level articles or math problems, regardless of their actual age. If that's their level, then that's what they're going to see when they're working on adaptive practice. And that's just automatic. As the teacher, you can also assign some of the specific K-2 products. That's decodables and number facts, which we'll cover a little bit more in a minute. You can assign those to specific students. If they're not in grades K-2, that's fine. That's still available for you. So if you have a 4th grade student who is still working on, reading foundations and you want them to practice decodables, then you can create that assignment in your teacher dashboard. You'll just select that student or those students and create that assignment for them. The difference is that those students who are in older grade levels, who are working at a K-2 level, are not going to have the K-2 interface. That means, you'll see this in a minute when we jump into the product, they're not going to have the simplified K-2 homepage. They're not going to have the kind of more younger kid-friendly design. The reason for that is that we don't want them to feel segregated. We don't want their peers walking by and saying, oh, your Freckle looks babyish or something like that, that would kind of hurt their self-esteem or be counterproductive. So they're still going to have the older looking design. They're just going to have K-2 level problems. So that's the answer to that question. And with that, let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at the product. All right, I'm going to take us to the Freckle student dashboard right now. You should be able to see this screen with the piggy on it. I'm currently logged in as a first grade student. So on this screen, you can see there's kind of a limited number of things you can do. And if you've seen the Freckle for 3 to 5 or for middle school or older interface, you're going to see this looks quite a bit different. So instead of having a leaderboard with different students who have earned different coins and kind of lots of things to do on the home screen, it's really simplified down for K-2 students so that they don't get distracted or confused or get hung up on reading all of these words. They're really just going to see the options to practice ELA, practice math, or view their assignments from their teacher. So I can see here this student has 4 assignments, and that's really all they're going to see. So let's go ahead and start taking a look at some of the things that your students can do in Freckle. I'm going to click on ELA. And within ELA, we have the option to read decodables, to practice sight words, to practice word study, or to read articles. Now, articles are something that's available for all students on Freckle, and those are all adaptive. So if you are, say, a 2nd grade teacher and you have some students who are still reading at a kindergarten early reader level, but maybe you have some students who are more advanced and they're reading at a 3rd or 4th grade level, then if they read articles, they're all going to be reading at their own individual level. And that's something that's going to be true across the board, no matter what grade you're teaching in Freckle. However, decodables and sight words are specific to K-2. So let's take a look at decodables first. Decodables are short stories or series of words and pictures that students can view to get them up to speed with their kind of foundational reading skills. And each of these little stories or series of words and pictures centers around either letters or word sounds. So we can see up here, we have a S and T story, an M and R story. As we scroll down, we'll see some kind of longer stories that have a little bit more, plot involved. And so Fat Cat on Dad's Hat is working on words that end with at, app, or ad. You can see a fan of the man, Jen the hen. These all kind of have these similar word and letter patterns to help reinforce these foundational reading skills with younger students. So let's just take a look at this M and R story really quick. As you can see, this is a really simple screen. All the student is going to see is a word and a picture. And so they will click through and view each of these words and pictures. You can use this individually with students and have them go through and practice maybe reading these words aloud. This is also something that you can do in small groups or as a whole class. Students kind of enjoy seeing the words and pictures. They find some of the pictures kind of funny. It can be a lot of fun, and it can be a great way to just get students recognizing these words that start with the similar sounds. Once they are through with the story, let's just go ahead and click through really fast. Once they reach the end, they're going to have two simple questions at the end that focus on the words that they've read in this little example. So they have an audio play along option. Let me turn my volume up so you can hear this.
Which word begins with the letter M?
And then they can play each of the words.
Rare. Deal.
If they get the question incorrect, it's going to let them know. And then when they get the right answer, they'll get a little celebration on the screen, which is a lot of fun for younger students.
Which word begins with the letter R?
Let's get the answer right this time. Once again, they get a little celebration. And they'll be taken to a screen where they can see how many coins they've earned. And then they're able to choose another decodable. Let's go back and take a look at sight words, which is going to be another ELA practice mode. Sight words is a great way to help build foundational reading skills with your students by helping them learn to recognize and spell the most common sight words they're going to encounter as they become readers. So let's take a look at this really quick. On level 1, we're practicing the words to and the and a.
Let's learn the following words. To. Let's spell it. T. O. To. Now you try. Say this word. 3, 2, 1, go.
Then the student will read the word out loud.
To. Let's use it in a sentence. I like to sit in the sun. Find the word to.
Again, if they get the question incorrect,
try again.
It's going to let them know.
Correct.
And then it'll move them along to the next word. So it'll cover these 4 words, and students can practice this as much as they like. With decodables, you can create an assignment, and I'll show you the assignments page really quick. I just clicked on From My Teacher, and I can see the assignments that the teacher has given to this student in order. You can assign decodables, or you can just have students practice them on their own time. If you have early finishers, or you're working in centers, or you just want everyone to practice decodables at the same time, you can do that. The same goes with sight words. Those are great for working in centers, and those are great for having all students work on that at the same time. Let's take a look at word study next. So with word study, this is also available for older age groups, but this is going to be spelling and phonetics practice. So students are going to move through a series of letter and word patterns. Right now, the student is at level 15, so they're working on same vowel word families with pictures. So let's take a look at where they're at right now. We're going to do a little review. With word study, you will also often get these audio play along options.
What letter does the image start with?
And if they're not sure what that image indicates, then they can play the audio button.
Zigzag.
And let's say we get the question incorrect. It'll let us know. And let's get it correct. This is another example of something that word study offers, is sorting. So, oh, it looks like my images aren't loading right now, so pardon that. Oh, my images are great down here. Great. So we can see the W.
Ooh. walk, yo-yo, zipper.
And we'll be able to see each of these pictures. We can play the audio again if we're not sure what that picture indicates.
Wig. Yard.
So let's go ahead and sort these. I'm going to just kind of rush through these really quickly so that we can move along.
Water.
Got all of those correct, so that's great. And now we're going to move along. That was a review of what that student learned last time. And now we're going to practice the new challenge. So this is focusing on the last two letters of the word. Let's play it along.
Bat.
And the student will type in the last two letters. Let's say they get it incorrect. It'll let them know. Let's see, they say they get it incorrect again. They'll have multiple opportunities to try again.
Sad.
Again, we're back to sorting. So this will show us the picture. It'll show us the letters.
At, rat.
And we'll be able to sort these words. I'm going to get some of them right and some of them wrong, just so we can see how it shows them what they need to go back and correct. It'll show us the words that were incorrect, and they'll have an opportunity to correct those. Oh, and it looks like this one is very similar. We just, instead of having the words, we have the pictures.
Sad.
I do recommend, as you're doing this in class, you have your students use headphones, because it can get a little bit chaotic in the room if everyone's playing these audio buttons at the same time. So I would highly encourage you to use headphones with your students if you're having them practice
Tag.
multiple students at the same time.
Lap. Wrap.
Once we reach the end, the student will see how many coins they earned, and they'll be able to continue practicing. All right, those are our ELA articles, or our ELA options. Let's take a look at our ELA articles before we move along to math. The student can click on the articles and read an article of their choice. And we've got the article library separated out into different categories. This is something I think is great, and it's a nice key to differentiation, is allowing students to choose to learn about things that they're personally interested in. It's a great way to get students kind of excited about their own passions and excited to learn about reading. So let's say my student here is interested in technology. So he's going to go ahead and click into technology, and he can scroll through until he sees an article that he's interested in reading. Additionally, as the teacher, you can assign an article, but let's say right now we just want to have our students read whatever they would like to read. So he's going to click on NASA. We can see that this student is reading at a K to first grade level, so they are reading the early reader version of this article. Let's say this article is something that you wanted to assign to students who are at different reading levels, and maybe there's a student in your class who's reading at a third grade level. The version of this article that that student would see would be very different from the version that this student would see. With the kindergarten level version of this article, we have the audio play along option, and we don't have a full page of multiple paragraphs. We're going to go paragraph by paragraph so that the younger students and the students who are at lower reading levels don't get overwhelmed. So let's go through this really quickly.
Have you ever heard of NASA?
They'll just click through as they read each of these sentences. There's plenty of pictures. That's something that's unique to K-2. The different articles for higher reading level students they may also have pictures. They're just going to be fewer and farther between. And again, older students will scroll down through a whole text instead of reading paragraph by paragraph like this. We'll just click through all of these really quickly. And once they're finished with the article, they'll click Done Reading, and they'll get a couple of reading comprehension questions. So the student can read the questions and play along the audio.
When did NASA send a man to the moon?
They'll still have the text.
1979, 1969, 2009, 1999.
I jumped the gun a little bit there. It also reads the answers aloud. So students still have access to the text over on the left-hand side, and they can scroll down if they need to refer back to the text, if they aren't sure or they have forgotten the answer, then they can still reference it. And it will let them know if they get it correct. And let's answer this question incorrectly. So you can see if they get that wrong, they'll see that they've lost some coins, so they have an option to try again. And let's get it right this time. So it shows them that they didn't earn any coins for that one because they didn't answer the question correctly. But they did earn coins for the question that they did answer correctly. So they see that they have a total of 7 coins earned. Now, your younger students may not be paying attention to that right now, and that's totally fine. Once we reach the end, it'll give us a review of how we did. We got 7 coins, and now we're back to being able to choose our practice. So let's take a look at math really quickly. With math, students have 2 options. Number facts, which is going to be great for your students who are really just starting to build their foundational math and number skills, and math practice, which will carry them a lot farther. So if you have students who are really kind of racing ahead in math, then the sky is the limit with math practice. Let's look at number facts first. Number facts is the K-2 specific math practice. I can scroll through and see that there are multiple levels here. They start from the easiest, level 1, which is addition with a sum up to 5. And as students make progress, they'll go through these levels all the way up to, I believe this goes to level 17 right now. So that's addition and subtraction within 20. But they're not able to just sort of randomly jump around or choose which one of these they want to practice. They need to go level by level. So if they're making quick progress through the levels, that's great. The program will move them up. But if they still need to continue working and practicing at level 1 for a longer time, that's fine. They're not going to move ahead until they're ready. So let's go ahead and practice level 1. I'll show you what this looks like.
Collect the ingredients so we can bake a cake. Select the number below.
It gives them a little walkthrough of
Now
what to
you
do.
try. 3 plus 1 equals.
If you have your students practicing this at the same time and you don't have headphones in your class, there is a little mute button over here that they can choose. But if you do want the audio, again, I recommend using headphones because otherwise it might get a little noisy in your classroom. So let's get this question right.
Correct. The correct answer is 3 plus 1 equals 4. 5 plus 0 equals.
And if we get the answer incorrect,
try again.
It'll tell us.
Try again. The correct answer is 5 plus 0 equals 5. 1 plus.
I'm going to mute that for a second. So if the student gets the answer incorrect 3 times, then it will go ahead and give them the correct answer so they don't just get stuck clicking around randomly. Let's just move through a couple more of these quickly.
The correct answer is 1 plus 0 equals 1.
All right, we don't have time to go through all of these questions, otherwise we'll be stuck here for a minute. At the end, the student will see, again, a little celebration screen that shows them how many questions they got correct, and they'll see a picture of the piggy baking the cake. So that's a lot of fun for them to see, you know, the fruits of their labor, I guess, if you want to give them that little pun. All right, let's take a look at math practice really quickly, and then we will reach the end and try to get to as many questions as possible. So math practice, unlike number facts, is going to give students multiple domains in which to practice. So as students kind of outgrow number facts, math practice is where they're going to want to hang out. Now, the first time they practice in any of these domains, they will take a diagnostic pretest. So this student hasn't started the pretest in fractions or financial literacy. That's just going to assess their current skill level so that the program can give them the appropriate challenge and start them at the right place along that pathway. Once they have completed the pretest, it's going to place them at a level and they can practice from there. So let's take a look at, let's just jump into geometry really quickly. My student is currently at level 5 in geometry. As I scroll up, I can see the different standards that they have currently practiced, or they have already practiced, the one that they're currently working on, and later what's to come along this pathway. So if I could click practice, it's going to take me into level 5. So this is going to be a little bit more challenging, a little bit more complex than number facts. I will have an audio option.
The pink pentagon is blank. The yellow pentagon. Larger than. Smaller than. The same size as.
So let's go ahead and get the right answer. If I get the wrong answer, it'll let me know, and so on. So as the student progresses through this level, once again, they're earning coins that they can later spend in the piggy store. And if they get a lot of correct answers, then that's great. It's going to move them up. You can see up here, again, students may not be paying that much attention to this, but we can see that they have 401 out of 500 points in this level before they move up to level 6. But if they get a lot of questions incorrect, then it's going to keep them here at level 5 until they've really gotten a solid grasp of it, and then they can move along. Let's go ahead and exit. Freckle does save students' progress in math practice and in articles. So if it's time for them to go to their next class or you need to interrupt them for some reason, they won't lose their hard-earned work. All right, we have covered our different ELA and math practice modes. We've taken a look at the assignments that the teacher can give to the student, and we've covered some of the basics of, what is different about Freckle for K-2 than for older students. And we're starting to get really short on time, so I have time to cover just one question that has come in. And if I'm not able to answer your question, do please write into support@freckle.com. We'll answer all of your questions absolutely as quickly as possible. And the question I want to answer is one that we get a lot. The question is, what is the difference between Freckle's free version and Freckle's paid version, our school edition? So I'll touch on that really quickly. The difference is it's largely going to be the same for what we've covered today. So your students are going to have access to all of these practice modes if you're on free edition or if you're on school edition. You'll still be able to practice those decodables, those number facts, those sight words, and everything else. The difference is really going to come into play in the amount of content you have access to. So the article library is going to be much greater on the school edition. You're going to have access to over 750 articles that you can assign as the teacher, and your students will have access to the articles that are at their level if they're just choosing an article on their own. On free edition, you're going to have a more limited selection of articles, but it's still quite a few. So I wouldn't say that you would have to be worried about running out of articles to assign to your students. You're still going to have many articles. It's just that on school edition, you have access to the complete content library. The other difference is in the reporting capabilities. So we didn't really touch on the teacher side too much today. I do want to jump into the, let's try that again. Let's jump into the teacher dashboard really quickly. The teacher dashboard is going to look the same for you, whether you are a K-2 teacher or a different teacher. You're going to have access to your activity feed, which shows what your students have been working on. You're going to have access to the subjects, so you can create assignments. The real difference is going to come in your reports. So let's just take a look at our math reports really quickly. With School Edition, you have access to more reports and you have access to more options with your reports. So for example, if I wanted to check in on how my students are doing in math practice in each individual domain or standard, on School Edition, I'm going to be able to select the time period that I want to look at. So let's say I wanted to look at base 10 performance for, let's say, the last 3 months. That's something I can do on School Edition. On Free Edition, I'm only going to have access to the most recent week's data. Again, let's look at our ELA reports really quickly. If I wanted to look at students' report cards, this would show me their reading level, the level that they're practicing at in word study. And once again, I could choose, the current week, it's the summer, so I don't have any data in here. So if I were just on Free Edition, this would not be maybe as useful to me as if I were on School Edition. If I wanted to look at this student's performance for all time, I would have access to all of this student data. So if you are a teacher that uses a lot of data and you really rely on tracking this growth over time, I would recommend you consider School Edition. If you are curious about how much that would cost for your school, you can visit freckle.com and check out our plans. You can request a quote and we will come up with a customized quote for your school, and we can work with you on getting access to that for you and your fellow teachers in your school. All right, we have officially run out of time, so I'm sorry I wasn't able to answer all of your questions, but I do hope you've learned a little bit about Freckle for K-2 today. So if you have additional questions, again, please write into support@freckle.com. And aside from that, I hope you will use Freckle with your K-2 students, and I hope you and your students will enjoy it and your students will grow a lot. So thank you everybody for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you again on a future Freckle webinar. Goodbye, everybody.